Joining us now on the Drive the Lane podcast, Chicago Bulls play-by-play radio announcer, and he's just a genius about all things NBA. I'll say that right off the bat. Chuck Swirsky. Chuck, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course, we always love connecting with you and having you on my shows. I've had a bunch of different shows with you on. But first off, got to know this. What have your thoughts been on this crazy NBA bubble?
Well, firsthand, my son was in the bubble for about 5 weeks because he's the video coordinator of the Memphis Grizzlies. I communicated with him every day. He felt that the NBA did a fabulous job. The attention to detail, second to none. He loved every second of it. Obviously, they have a dynamic young player in Ja Morant. But having said all this, he came away extremely impressed. And from a viewer standpoint, watching the games, I thought the technology was like off the charts. It was awesome. And I give a lot of credit to not only the men and women who put this thing together, because let's be perfectly honest with you, they had to do a lot of work. This just wasn't paint by numbers here. And it was sensational. So congratulations to everyone who continues to operate in that bubble to keep everyone safe and secure. And then from a viewing standpoint, we're right there. And so it's great.
It is pretty amazing that it feels like we're watching history, right? Like this, hopefully, fingers crossed, won't ever happen again.
Right.
Is this something that you would have loved to be involved in? Like if you could be in the bubble, if they said, hey, Chuck, we need you right now, is that a no-brainer? I'm headed there?
Well, listen, all you have to do is ask my wife, Ann. She's ready to send me to the bubble with or without the Bulls. So it probably gives you an indication don't you have something better to do? But I want to be in the bubble. Honestly, if the NBA called me tonight and said, hey, we need some help, you're in the bubble, I'm in the bubble. But, I miss the fans. I miss the excitement of having a team compete against another team, because there's nothing like winning on the road. I can tell you that. Regular season playoffs, when you go into an opposing arena and steal a game, it's tremendous. But in this case, I know the NBA's tried everything, the crowd noise, the virtual look, and I think that's all well and good. But listen, the players know this game needs fans. And I understand what's going on with all of us, and I hope you guys are well, because our health is everything. And I think the NBA has made that the priority regarding the players and the staff and everyone inside the bubble, because we're witnessing what's going on in baseball, and it's tough. They're going from park to park. Teams are catching this, but so far so good with the NHL and the NBA.
Yeah, it really has been great to see. And Joey and I both being from Chicago, the only thing that really sucks about it, other than, Steph's not in it, some All-Stars aren't in it, the Bulls not being in it sucks. Obviously, we wish they were playing. We wish we could watch them. We'll get to some Bulls stuff, but I want to know from you, what's your NBA Finals prediction, matchup, and champ?
I'm taking the Raptors. I'm taking the Clippers. And I want you to invite me back on your show in about 3.5 weeks, because as we know, things are fluid. And in the bubble, guys have to leave for personal reasons. They come back, they have to quarantine, whatever the case may be. But right now, I'm taking the Raps and the Clippers. The injury to Hayward for Boston is huge. I love what Boston's doing, but I think you take him out of the mix and they're still deep, but they aren't as deep. And he's still a very, very good player. Maybe not the Utah player that we saw back in the day, because injuries, the moment he arrived in Boston, he's been going down. But I do like the Raps to repeat in the East. I think Nick Nurse is an elite coach, and he's proving that. And Masai Ujiri just keeps cranking out players. And I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to do in the offseason, because they've got an eye towards the future. They got to take care of Fred VanVleet, because VanVleet is going to get some coin, major coin. And here's a guy from Rockford, comes out of nowhere, Wichita State, gets signed by the Raps as a free agent, then just says, hey, I can ball. And now look at him. I mean, the guy has been fabulous.
Yeah, his pockets are going to be Fred Van Deep.
I like that. I may steal that. I like it.
I used to watch Fred in high school. Me and my dad we thought who is this guy? We were amazed by him. We saw him play like 6 times his senior year. Fast forward, I actually had some close friends who were his teammates at Wichita State. So I was always following Fred VanVleet, and then boom, it's seemingly out of nowhere, but not to the real, fan of basketball, that he was one of the best players in college basketball when he came to the NBA. But it is crazy that the Raptors, I agree with you. I think they're coming out of the East. Me and Andrew were just talking about that before this. And I think it's because they are the ultimate team, right? Like, Do they have a superstar? They have all-stars. Do they have a superstar, though? That's up in the air. But they're just the ultimate team. Like, guys like Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, they separate good teams from elite teams, right? So it's just pretty cool to see in this age of all the guys trying to make these super teams that a team like the Raptors not only wins the NBA championship, but gets worse, quote unquote, and might get back there, this season.
Well, remember when that trade was made, obviously DeMar DeRozan felt he was misled by some things. I'm really not privy or have the inside information on that, but DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry were super tight. And so they had this about maybe 2 to 4 weeks where they get over it. I mean, because this was a major, major trade. And then, of course, they made sure that Kawhi Leonard was healthy for the playoffs, and which he was. And the shot against Philadelphia to propel them in against the Bucks, they're down 2-0 in the series against Milwaukee. And who made the adjustments in that series? Toronto. Nick Nurse. They put the wall at the foul line against Giannis. And so we know the rest is history. And I think it is a great story about what coaching can do, players checking their ego at the door, and just go out and ball. And that's what they're doing right now. And I think it's a great testimony to the character of the players who have bought in, especially Kyle Lowry. And, what more can I say?
It's interesting because, for those who don't know, Chuck, you spent a lot of time doing similar stuff to what you do with the Bulls with the Raptors. So I'm sure you're always kind of still paying attention over there, which is why you're so in depth with everything that's going on. Someone else you've been pretty in depth with what's going on, I'm sure, Jimmy Butler, of course, on the Bulls.
Yep.
Moved around a couple other teams. Now he's on the Heat. The Heat are actually my pick to come out of the East. And we've actually had Duncan Robinson on the show. He's a friend of the show. Curious what you think about the Heat and Jimmy Butler.
Well, listen, one thing about Jimmy Butler, you know what you're getting when you acquire a guy like Jimmy Butler. He's not an alpha. He is like a mega alpha times squared to the 3rd degree. He will dominate. He will own the locker room. He will get in your face. He will put his arm around you. He will test you. He will do everything. And he's an acquired taste. Some players buy in. Some players are saying, hey, that's cool. That's you. That's not me. But one thing about Jimmy from day one, I saw him as a rookie, and I remember having a talk with him on the Bulls bench during his rookie season. And I said, Jimmy, you have so much talent, and it's coming. It will come. Your time hasn't arrived yet, but it's coming. Be patient. And patience is not a word in Jimmy Butler's vocabulary. But let me tell you what, he pushed the envelope into his success. Look where he was at his rookie year to now, where he is again. He's an Olympic gold medalist, okay? He has a chance, as you said, you're taking Miami to reach the finals. If Jimmy Butler, I'm telling you right now, I think there's a chance. If Jimmy Butler continues, if he stays healthy, and if he continues to play at this elite level, and if he wins the championship, I think he might be under consideration for the Hall of Fame one day.
I don't think that's a stretch considering the era of basketball that we're in, he's a borderline, top 20, 15 player, right? And
Yes.
if he makes any more leaps, and he's made a ton, so why wouldn't you expect him to make another one? He gets into that category, not only as one of the best, two-way players in the NBA, which he's been considered for years, but one of the best players in the NBA. And we've seen it up close and personal, so we have a different opinion. I mean, I'm super biased. I love Jimmy Butler. That's Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler are the two guys that I feel like I grew up watching. But I think the one team that we haven't mentioned that we have to is the Lakers, right? And we are Ohio State. We have our Ohio State allegiances, which I guess contains LeBron. Not in my opinion, it doesn't, but I think Andrew, he takes ownership of LeBron James on this podcast. So if LeBron was here, he'd be asking Chuck, why are we not in the NBA Finals?
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm a graduate of Ohio U, and we don't have any Ohio U players. We almost have one in Karis LeVert, but he elected at the last minute to switch to the University of Michigan, a team I broadcast for, Go Blue, and all that stuff. But here's the thing about the Lakers. I really want to trust that Anthony Davis is going to stay healthy. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, because I'm just, and I mean, sometimes injuries find a player, sometimes a player finds injuries. And I'm just hoping that he stays healthy. I don't want him to go down crashing to the floor or spraining an elbow or coming up lame with a knee injury or a leg injury. And because I love Anthony Davis, I think he's number one. I've met him several times. He's a really good guy, and I think moving to LA, you're starting to see him in a lot of commercials. And I think his personality's coming out. And I know how much he loves Chicago and how much, the city gave him the strength and the courage, to excel. But I'm just afraid that if as the series extend, if they start going into 6 games, 7 games, and then they have to reach the finals, and you have played 13 games, 18 games, whatever, into that finals, in the NBA finals, I think they're going to be exhausted. And that's why if I'm LA right now, I'm a little going into the Portland series. I'm not saying it's a pick'em series. The Lakers should win that series, but I think Portland's going to give them all they can handle.
So if the Clippers and the Lakers are healthy and they're playing in the Western Conference Finals, they're healthy, no problems. They both have similar paths. They win in the first round's like a 5-game series, the second round's a 6-game series, and then they meet. Are you still taking the Clippers there?
I'm still taking the Clippers.
Gotcha. So just wanted to make sure that there was no injury caveat there.
Yeah, I think LeBron's going to win the MVP, even though Giannis' numbers were better. I think LeBron is going to win the MVP for different layers, and so I'm just thinking right now that it's going to be the Clips.
It's hard to argue it.
And I'll tell you what, the storyline of Kawhi Leonard playing a team that he helped guide to the championship.
So many storylines in that.
Unbelievable.
3 years, 3 different teams. I mean, it's just that dude, the most uninteresting, interesting man on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I've never been on a team featuring Kawhi Leonard, so I don't know him other than hello, how are you? And that's probably infrequent during his career. But, the first time I heard of Kawhi Leonard, well, actually, the first time I heard of him, Steve Fisher, who coached Michigan when I was doing the games, Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher told me about him. They're in the Mountain West. So, occasionally I would watch Mountain West games because my son, who's now with the Grizzlies, went to UNLV as a manager because he wanted to get into coaching and whatever. And so he sends me this text the first time his freshman year. He sends me this text with UNLV playing San Diego State. He goes, "Dad, I got to tell you about this guy, Kawhi Leonard." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, this guy's going to be really, really good. Well, you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, whatever, my son, he's a freshman, he's got all these things. He goes, no, Dad, I'm serious. You watch. And sure enough, so, he leaves school, gets traded on draft night, Indiana, George Hill, goes to Indiana. Kawhi Leonard ends up with San Antonio. Oh my gosh. So, hey, now, I mean, the guy's already a lock for the Hall of Fame. He could retire tonight. He's in.
So crazy.
That's a good transition, that story about your son, into a little Bulls talk, and you'll hear why. Bear with me, and you'll realize why it's Bulls talk.
Okay.
Andrew's the king of segues. He's the king of segues. Let him work.
So I went to Mizzou, okay?
Yes.
And I was a junior when Michael Porter was on the team. And a lot of my friends chose not to go abroad second semester junior year because we thought we were going to make a Final Four run with Michael Porter, and we didn't want to miss that.
Absolutely.
So even after the injuries, even after he slipped, I was one of those guys saying, this guy's going to be good. If he can give you one healthy season, it'll be one hell of a season.
Yep.
So that leads to the Bulls not drafting Michael Porter.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulls front office has been questionable. Now there's a new coach, new people in the front office. So my segue now to you. Thoughts on what the Bulls are doing and what they're looking like right now?
All right. Well, let's dial it back a little bit about Michael Porter. So he went to Nathan Hale High School in Seattle. And I believe his dad coached him, right? Well, his dad was at Missouri.
Brandon Roy coached him at Nathan
Brandon
Hale.
Roy coached him.
And his dad got hired at Missouri.
And now his father was going to be an assistant at Missouri, correct?
Yes.
He was going to be an assistant at Washington.
At Washington.
Washington fired, yeah.
Lorenzo Romo got fired.
Exactly.
And Lorenzo, I think, is at Pepperdine now,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. So, and Porter played what? One game? How many games did he play for Missouri?
Andrew?
So, oh, man, it was frustrating. He played the first minute of his first game and had an offensive rebound putback, and he pointed at the bench, and he got subbed out. And then he played in our only SEC tournament game, which was a loss, and he played in the tournament game, which was a loss. So he played two games. Yeah, he did not have they won the game the first game of the season he won.
Right.
So,
Right,
but yeah, 3 games at Mizzou.
Okay, and he had back surgery at Missouri, but he also had back surgery like he missed his rookie year with Denver, correct?
Yes.
All right, so here's the story. If I'm the Bulls and I'm looking at an 18-year-old young man, 18, 19, and he's already had back surgery, I'm thinking to myself, listen, I'm already getting, we have injuries. Do I really want to wait 1 year to see what we've got? Or we got Wendell Carter Jr. Now, granted, it's way too early. Sample size is great on Michael Porter Jr. I get all that. He's been great. And I hope he stays healthy. But you go into the draft and you say, we worked out Wendell Carter. We like this kid. We think maybe he's got a chance to be a really good player with this new age NBA. When I saw him play at Duke, I thought he was going to be another Al Horford. And I still think with the new coach and a new system, he's going to blossom. But I think it's too soon because I read the boards just like you do. And people are saying, I can't believe the Bulls passed on Michael Porter Jr. It's way too early. Let's see if Michael Porter Jr. can handle the endurance of 82 games and playing 31, 33 minutes a night. If you're going to be a starter, you probably are going to be playing somewhere 28 to 33, 34 minutes a night. And I know they're going to bring him along gradually, obviously. But what I see, I like. But I'm telling you right now, do not write off Wendell Carter Jr. I still am really, really high on him.
So in your opinion, in terms of drafting, now this isn't a specific this year's Bulls draft question. I'm sure Andrew has some of those for you. But in terms of drafting, are you under the impression that when you're in the state of the Bulls, in this perpetual state of, we have a chance, if we make the 8th seed, that would be a huge success, those types of years, which are not what everyone wants, but that's just the truth of the matter. Are you under the impression that let's just keep accumulating these really good players, or we need to maybe take a reach and a boom or bust type of guy? Is that something that might cross your mind?
Well, here's the thing, and I've never met Arturas, so I really don't know. Mark Eversley, I know from Toronto because he was with Nike Canada, then with the Raptors when I was there. But I think they've had a lot of time to evaluate on tape. The unfortunate thing about, being one of these 8 teams that didn't go in the bubble, you want to, like the optics, you want to see players play. You want to see like, okay, here's how they can play off each other. Here's Levine and Kobe, and what do they do together that we really like? Here's some areas where we may have to start tweaking a little bit. How do we get guys to play with Levine or Kobe? How do we get guys to play with Mark? And all these things come into play when you have a brand new front office, and that has a ripple effect to the new coach. So, I mean, listen, if I'm a GM, I always listen. That's part of your job. A big part of your job is to listen and to initiate. But if you're a new coach, you're picking a coach that will look at these players. Player development is huge. This is still a very young club. They've been hurt. So you really don't know what they're capable of doing. Bits and pieces here and there, great. But they've got to stay healthy, and then they have to play together. It's one thing to say, well, we got this guy, this guy, this guy. It's another to see how this is all going to mesh. And there might be a player or two where they're going to have to say, you know what, the way we want to play, we may have to consider moving. They may say to themselves, we like our group. Let's get a coach in here who's going to coach them up in this system, and let's find out what we have. And then going into 21-22, they'll say, okay, we know what we have now. But it's really, I'm kind of bummed out that the Bulls weren't in that group, because they lost to a lot of teams they should have beaten, and they just missed going to the bubble when COVID arrived. But now it's up to Arturas and Mark and the new coach to kind of put things together.
Arturas and the eventual new coach. I don't even know who the coach is yet, but I have faith in him compared to how I felt the last few years. But my question for you is, as someone who works within the team, what's that exit like, in your opinion, between you and whether it's a player who gets traded or it's a coach that's relieved of his duties? Do you reach out to them and say, hey, love working with you, talking with you? I'm just curious what the radio play-by-play guy's relationship is like on the way out.
Well, unfortunately, I've done this a few times during my career where a collegiate coach or an NBA coach, and they're relieved of their duties. So let me give you a brief background. In the case, let's bring up Jim, because it just recently happened, Coach Boylan. So what happens, I'm around him every day, home and road. I do a pregame show with him, and I go in his office usually at 5:30 for a 7 o'clock tip. And sometimes we have Bulls TV where they bring in a camera guy, Charlie, my guy. He has the camera. I have a microphone. Coach Boylan would sit to my right on the couch, and we do about 3.5, 4-minute interview. Boom. Thanks, coach. See ya. He's got things to do. I got things to do. It's professional. We exchange pleasantries, but no long drawn out type of conversation about, the state of affairs in the NBA or everything. He's pleasant, always professional. He was terrific to deal with. And every coach, and I mean this sincerely, every coach I've dealt with, from dealing with Ray Meyer when I first started on this journey, to Joey Meyer, to Steve Fisher, to Brian Ellerby, to Butch Carter, to Lenny Wilkins, to Kevin O'Neill, to Sam Mitchell, to Vinny Del Negro. I'm going down the list here, of Tom Thibodeau, to Fred Hoiberg, to Jim Boylan. Those are a lot of coaches, But they've all been great because they understand I have a job to do. And so they're good. Some coaches, want to cross into territory where they want to get to know me more than just a guy with a microphone. Other coaches are saying, listen, you know what? I got a job to do. You got a job to do. You know what? I'm professional. You're professional. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. Boom. And I get that. I have no problem with that. Really, I don't. When a coach is released, and in the case of Jim Boylan, I reached out to him, haven't heard back from him, not to say I won't, because I'm sure I will. Like during Christmas or the holidays, I would drop him a text saying, hey, coach, you know what? Happy holidays, wishing you and your family all the best. He'd write me back. All the coaches would always send a text back saying, thank you, same to you and your family. Boom, that's great. And I do that just because as a person, I want to make sure they know that I do care about them as people. This is still a people business. But once they're released, they're gone. And then when you see them down the road, you say, hello, how are you? When Tibbs went to Minnesota, first time back, he pulled me aside saying, hey, you good? Everything fine? Yep, coach. Hope you do well in Minnesota. Yeah, I get it. And that's it. It's just boom.
Gotcha. Very professional. We expect nothing less from a pro's pro. And I also want to make sure I get out there that I did a pregame show one time when I was at Ohio State, and it was the coolest thing ever. And it was very unprofessional because me and our radio play-by-play guy were like talking about it for years. It was before senior night. So, we talked about it through all the years. We were like, hey, Joe, don't worry. We're going to get you on there. Yeah, an unprofessional relationship from my perspective. So
who is the coach?
Our Coach Holtman was the coach. It was
okay.
me, Coach Holtman, and Paul Keels.
Okay.
It was very funny. We did one. Actually, I did two, but one was brief. The other one was when we played Northwestern because I was home. It was like my homecoming, and there was nobody else to really talk about. We were on like a 3-game losing streak, so they're like, throw Joey in there, he'll talk, that type of deal.
Yeah.
But the second one was before senior night, which was a little bit more fun.
Yeah. Well, Paul is a great broadcaster. He's got those deep pipes.
The voice of the Buckeyes. So
very funny. Deep pipes. I'm Paul Keels, home of the Buckeyes. I mean, his pipes are like great. I mean, he's probably got top 5 pipes I've ever been around.
It's funny you say that because sometimes when I tell people I played for Ohio State, they say, "Oh, Paul Keels, man, that dude's voice is incredible." It's like,
yeah, it is. Because when I was doing Michigan, I would run in. I think the first time I met Paul was probably when I was doing DePaul and he was doing Ohio State. DePaul was in a couple of preseason NIT games with the Buckeyes. I know we played Ohio State and Maui. But I mean, the guy's a great announcer. He used to call games for the Pistons way back in the day in the NBA. But anyway, so the Buckeyes, I mean, you saw some great games though.
I had a front row seat for a lot of great games.
Yes, you did.
Chuck, my last question before we let you go. It's not really a question. It's story time. So I've heard this story a few times from you. Once when you spoke in my high school, and I think we may have had you tell it on the podcast I had you on last time, but I don't think Joey knows it. And it's your conversation with Drake.
Yes.
And I think Joey will enjoy it, and I know the listeners will enjoy it. So the floor is yours.
So, Drake is from Toronto. And
everyone knows that now.
and the Raptors were very kind because when they hit year 20 in franchise history, they acknowledged certain individuals during the 20-year span. So the first time that the Bulls went into Toronto during Toronto's 20th season in the NBA, and I was there for 10 of them, they acknowledged me, which was very kind of them, very, very, very kind, with a video tribute. And I didn't know it was coming. And I'm telling you the truth, this came out of nowhere. And it happened during the first time out, I think, of the second quarter. And so the public address announcer, Herbie Kuhn, says, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement. Please look at the big board. So You know, I mean, I've got one, you know, I'm talking to our engineer back in Chicago, making sure like, you know, everything good back there, whatever. And the guy taps me on the shoulder from behind and he goes, look, and I'm seeing myself on the big board. So I went like this, thinking that's it, you know, it's nice. And I took my headset off and they did this like 90-second tribute. And then they said, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back, you know, former Raptor voice, Chuck Swirsky. Well, our players are right in front of me. And Joakim Noah's looking at me like, he's going, oh. And so, I mean, I was embarrassed to be candid with you. And there to the right near the Raptor bench is Drake. And Drake is like, and I'm thinking, what? So now it's halftime. And I'm flustered. I mean, it was like really moving. It was very, I mean, I was like shocked. And so I'm walking back to the press room. I hear this, Chuck. And I'm thinking it's, you know, someone I knew from Toronto during my days, whatever. And there's Drake with this massive bodyguard, huge. And I'm going like this. And the bodyguard says, come on, come here. And I'm thinking, what, me? Wait, me? You want me? Like, me? He goes, yeah. So there's Drake and his bodyguard. And Drake says, hey, Chuck, man, what's going on? I'm thinking, wow. Come on, let's get a pic. And I'm thinking, you want a picture with me? I said, I'd love a picture with you because I want to show my kids. He goes, let's do this. And so that was that. And so then Joakim Noah, after the game, this is a true story. Joakim Noah, after the game, comes to the locker room and says, Chuck, man, we're going clubbing with Drake afterwards. He was being facetious, I think. But he says, man, we're going partying. He goes, you know, Drake, you're clubbing. I'm hanging with you. He was kidding, of course, because I never shared any moments with Joe. Even though Joe remains like my guy. I love Joakim Noah. Like, I'd go through a brick wall for him. That's what I think of him. So that was my moment in Toronto. That's it.
I think that's, first of all, that's amazing. Second of all, it all comes back to your NBA Finals prediction where that's why you have the Clippers winning is because you want Joakim Noah to win.
Well, you know what? I would love Joe to get the ring. The Raps have had their ring. Okay, they got it. But now Joe would be tremendous. I mean, I would be so happy for him. And, you know, of all my years broadcasting, I did every game Vince Carter played as a Raptor, and I was there with McGrady and I was there with Bosch. But the year when we had a Healthy Rose and Luol Deng and Joakim Noah, and that club was just ready. It was ready to roll. And I think of that game one in the playoff series against Philly when Derek went down, and it was just, it was heartbreaking for many reasons. But I really believe that club was primed to win the championship. They would have gone to the finals during that LeBron Miami era. They would have beaten them at least once to go to the finals. After that, I'm not sure, but I can tell you it would have happened once.
It's gonna make me cry, Chuck.
I know, it's a bummer.
Oh man. Well, I think I speak for Andrew when I say this has been amazing. This has been very enlightening. It's the stories were the best part by far, and like you said, we're gonna have to have you on in a couple more weeks just so you can finalize your prediction when you see how everyone's playing, if anyone had babies and had to leave the bubble or anything like that. And we look forward to talking to you again.
All right, well, thank you. And let me just leave you with this.
Please.
Because, you know, like everything is under the microscope now, especially in the bubble. Everything is under the bubble with the microscope. And so for fans, I hope fans understand that, number one, we're all fans and we love and appreciate the athleticism and skill and intelligence of NBA players and coaches. This is a tough profession. These coaches are under an enormous amount of stress, and I get it. They're well paid. Players are making a lot of money. I get all that. But, you know, the sign of really the competition is when the players are just locked in. And when you see like a guy like Damian Lillard, what he did And Monty Williams, what he did with Phoenix, we're talking about the Phoenix Suns here, and they went unbeaten. And this wasn't, Phoenix earned that unbeaten streak. I mean, they played hard, and they got, it would have been so easy for players to say, hey, well, listen, we're coming to this bubble. I don't even know why we're here. But he got them to lock in. And I have so much respect for a guy like Lillard and Monty Williams that they were able to galvanize everything and just bring it. And they didn't play to the scoreboard. They balled out. And that's what I love about them.
Well, that sums up everything that Joey and I are thinking and that all fans are thinking. Because Joey and I are on the free Zoom, we only have 3.5 minutes left.
Go.
Whoa, but I want you to do this. As we're leaving, who's the Bulls' next coach?
I listen, you got to come back to me. Invite me back because
we're coming back to you.
I think this thing is wide open. I think this thing is wide open. And let me tell you what, there are assistants that want this job. Obviously, former coaches are going to be lining up for this. And, you never know the back channeling, the intel that goes on. I think, and I get it, the Nets are ready to win now. They're looking for a coach. I get that. Pelicans have Zion, and I get that. They got Brandon Ingram. They got Paul. I get that. Listen, this is a really, really, really good job. And whoever gets this job will know it's a really good job because they've got a front office in place with Arturis and Mark, and they've got the fan base when we get fans back at the United Center. This city wants the Bulls to do so well and to bust this baby wide open. And I want to be there calling games. And I hope I'm here long enough to do that.
Well, I was going to say we got good fans, good players, and they got one hell of a good play-by-play announcer that's going to be sitting in his corner. I can guarantee you that.
You're very kind. I hope you're right. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again. This was a blast.
All right, guys. Be well.
Thanks, Chuck.
Peace out.
Hey,